I'm Jiten Yumnam from Manipur. I work with the Center for Research and Advocacy Manipur, and I want to thank the students of the University of Philippines, Diliman, for inviting us to share on some of the larger concern of large dam, especially on the indigenous peoples. As you must have been aware already, the construction of large dam has been pursued in many parts of the world, and especially among the indigenous people's land and territories, all in the pretext of promoting development and economic growth. Like in our place in Manipur and also across northeastern part of India, what we are seeing is an increased construction of large dam, and especially in the Himalayan region, where there are multiple rivers that flows from our forests and also from the Himalayan glaciers. There are several dams that are already built, and we have very bad experience of large dam construction. One of the biggest challenges is the loss of our land, is the submergence of our agricultural land and our forests, and the destruction of our wetlands. And this has caused direct loss of livelihood to many of our indigenous peoples, because indigenous peoples, it's difficult to grow our own food, it's difficult to gather our own seasonal food and produces because of the submergence by the large dam construction. Dam building also in the Himalayan region, like in this place called Sikkim, where there are more than 30 dams either commissioned or under construction. It also caused massive landslides, and because of the boring of tunnels in the mountains, it also add to the fragility of the land in the Himalayas. And this also caused massive environmental impact, issues of landslide, issues of destruction of forests, issues of the loss of indigenous culture and tradition. I think this is one of the biggest impact. As you know, the rivers is source of culture, source of folklore, source of folk stories for many of the indigenous peoples. The blockade of river, it affected not just on the culture and tradition and way of life of the indigenous peoples. One of the reasons is also because when you block a river, it also blocks the migration of many of the indigenous fish varieties. And many of the indigenous fish, for example, are also used in the ceremonies and rituals and many of the traditional rituals. And this also directly and indirectly affected the culture of indigenous peoples. And what we also seen in our case with the dam construction is also the associated human rights issues. Say, for example, there is militarization of a land. Wherever there are dam construction, there is the power station, there is a tunneling project, there is also the massive engineering and also the infrastructures associated with dam building. And that also led to heavy militarization in many of the indigenous peoples, and it also directly led to conflict and also human rights issues. And another impact that we see when it comes to dam building in our case is also the division within the communities. So like indigenous communities are is community-oriented way of life. The culture revolves around the land and the forests and also the water. But when the dam comes, it directly disturbs that community oriented and relationship with the land, and because there are also restrictions imposed by the dam building companies and even by the government, asking the people not to go to the river, not to go to the forests, because those are declared as restricted and prohibited areas. So this also led to a lot of conflict, a lot of tension among the communities. And another is also the compensation rehabilitation, because the compensation rehabilitation, the incomplete nature and also the misinformation, the manipulation, it also caused a lot of tension and division among the many of the communities. And I think these are some of the impact that we see in our case. And another aspect of dam building is dam building also involves massive corruption and manipulation of public resources. Like in Manipur, we also see this some of the dams like Kuga Dam, the Kopum Dam, which are already commissioned but which lays defunct, unable to serve any of the purpose. So which means it is also a wastage of public money and public resources. So those resources could have been better utilized to serve the social needs of many of the marginalized communities, because many of the communities are languishing without proper education facilities, proper health facilities. So the money wasted in construction of failed and defunct dams could have been better utilized to promote the health and employment and educational needs of the different communities. With the dam building, the biggest perception, another challenge is the corporate bodies and also many of the dam builders, they see our land, our rivers, our forests as source of profit. And I think the fundamental challenge is the perception of our land. For indigenous peoples, our land is our source of our livelihood. Our land is a source of our culture. Our land is important for our coming generation. But for the companies, for the government, and also for the dam builders, they see dam building as only source of profit. I think that fundamental class and difference in the perception of our land and resources is also highly problematic when it comes to dam building. So I would, in conclusion, I would say that it's really, really important that we relook into the notion of dam building as something, with a boost for in the context of development. And also, it's also problematic because now large dams are also being pursued as a solution to climate change. Because everyone talks of renewable energy, and large dams are also promoted as renewable, clean, green, but which is actually false. And I would reiterate that large dams are not sustainable, are not green, are not clean source of energy, because dam building, it actually destroys our earth, it actually destroys our mother nature, it actually destroys our forests, it actually destroys the future of our coming generation. So it's high time that we rethink the notion of dam building as as sustainable, as source of clean energy, or as as source of economic growth or something. Because I think we really need to debunk, we really need to reject this notion, and it's really important that we defend and protect our land. It's really important that we ensure the free and unhindered flow of our rivers. Because our rivers, as I said, is also the source not just of livelihood, of our physical survival, but also rivers are also very much source of our culture, because rivers also connect cultures of many of the indigenous communities. It's very much important for the survival, the spiritual survival, the cultural survival, the physical survival of many of the indigenous peoples over generations, over the coming generation as well. So let us ensure that our rivers flow free for all generations. Let us stand together against large dam. Let us fight any form of corporate greed. Let us reject this notion of thinking our land, our resource, our territory, our rivers as source of profit, because our rivers, our land, and our forest is our life. And let's say no to large dams.